Let's get started. First, I'm not Frank Freivault. My name's Matt Portteus. Frank couldn't make it. He couldn't get a flight out, trickle down from Thanksgiving and fogged in where he lives. And so there was a lot of problems with him getting here. But Frank and I worked together on a Western States project. Again, my name's Matt Portteus. I'm an operations advisor for the Western Fire Chiefs Association. My project right now that I'm working on is the insurance problem. That's what we're calling it. And what it is, it's more, our project's actually known as the WUI Mitigation Alignment Project. It's a multi-state project which includes California, Arizona, Washington, Idaho, well, soon to be Idaho. They're coming on board. Colorado, Nevada, and that's it, yeah, 6 states. Now, Western Fire Chiefs has absolutely no authority in Arizona. We are here in partnership with Arizona Fire Chiefs Association to work on this project. Our single point of contact who's running lead for Arizona Fire Chiefs is Battalion Chief Oltrogge. He'll introduce himself here in a second, and we'll get started, but I wanted to clarify a little bit of that. So Frank was going to present. He is with the WUI Institute at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, in California. A little bit about me. I'm recently retired. I spent 20 plus years in the fire service in California. I live in Idaho. I retired as a division chief operations from Alameda County Fire Department in the Bay Area. Paul.
Good afternoon, everyone. For those I haven't had the opportunity and the pleasure to meet, Paul Oltrogge. As Matt spoke to and alluded to a little bit, I have been appointed as the Arizona Fire Chiefs representative with this project. So yeah, single point of contact through what we call AFCA is the acronym. And so I'm the representative for the fire departments and fire districts related to approaching the insurance issue and trying to come upon what we're calling mitigations that matter, and part of a larger working group, but my role in that is representing on the ground fire departments, fire districts, and Fire Chiefs Association at large.
So because of Frank not being able to make it, and I stepped in kind of last night, this morning, it's the same presentation and same work that Frank and I have been doing, but we've adapted this based off of what we've heard this morning and a lot of the conversations and stuff. We've kind of changed our presentation up a bit, but I'd like to get a kind of sense of who's in the room so I make sure that I understand everybody and where everybody's coming from. I understand Fire Marshal office, but okay, so just show of hands, fire chiefs in the room. Okay. Line personnel in the room. Okay. Fire safe, fire wise, councils in the room. Any insurance representatives in the room? Great. We can pin all the blame on them. I'm kidding. Business owners in the room. Okay. So, thank you. This kind of says a lot here. This is what we're up against. A lot of things are changing. And the time for admiring what's going on and watching what's going on is done. It's time for all of us in the Western states to take action. In the project we're working on, we feel I'll go back and how it started, but it's been in process for several years. It's a project funded by the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, ran through the Western Fire Chiefs Association. Gordon Betty Moore Foundation is actually funding several different WUI resilience projects that are running through Western Fire Chiefs right now that are in all the western states. This problem, it showed up without our permission. It's ambivalent to blame. What it is the leading edge of two calamities that have come into our world, our workspace, our homes. What do you see as, what do you think these two calamities really come down to, Chief?
People moving into the interface and then climate change.
Climate change, yeah. Some things have changed. Environmental, climate change. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about, you've heard it earlier, vapor pressure density and what's going on. But we'll talk, this isn't a climate change room. That's maybe in another room. The other one is economic. Okay, the fire insurance problem. Okay. The insurance, and these are all tied up here, and I'll go over them real quick, but that's a whole presentation all on its own. The insurance, the reinsurance market, municipal bonds and lending, all of these are being impacted by by our insurance. Let's just call it our insurance problem. Okay, the insurance and insurers valuing their risk and what they have in the market is affecting the reinsurance market. Okay, the reinsurance market is what they sell, insurance companies sell off. This is a global issue, not just an Arizona issue, but this is a global financial issue. So reinsurance market buys insurance on insurers. In a sense, this also affects municipal bonds. Okay, the things when you need to go and build a new fire station, a new park, a new school, and your city, town, county gets a bond, has tied to an interest rate, right, to go ahead and build these new facilities. It's also affecting lending, which when you go to get a new mortgage, when you go get a new business loan, when you go to, when cities, companies, et cetera, go to get loans, this is all being affected by this, what we're calling our insurance problem. It's much bigger than just our insurance problem. If you look at it, we've had unprecedented environmental property losses.
So a couple questions going, not necessarily going back, but with the previous slide leading into what in the math that we're going to start to look at now. What makes catastrophic wildfire and wildfire risk so hard to measure? And with the diversity in this group, I just, I'd like to hear any ideas that folks have or have maybe experienced in their fields. Any thoughts on that?
No consistency in the catastrophic event
Right,
from one wildfire year to the next.
right, right,
You have maybe less acres, but more residential loss or victim loss, but lower acres.
Yeah.
No consistency.
And then Chief, in your experience, how does measuring the impact of mitigation above and beyond that compare?
Anecdotally, again, I can tell you what I've done in my community, similar to Flagstaff, but we are not sharing that data to show the insurance industry that we have a different footprint in our backyard, nor are they asking for it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, nor are they ready to receive it. They don't know how to receive it.
Right. Let's pin those three things together. Insurance company not ready to receive the data. Us not giving the insurance industry the data. Smaller fires, bigger loss. More fires, more smaller fires, more loss.
I would say uncertainty drives a lot of it.
Uncertainty in what?
So if you look at Paradise, right,
Right.
You can't take Paradise historically and apply it to every single place in the Western United States.
Mhm.
Or what happened in Rio Doso, or what happened in San Carlos. But you can extrapolate where we're at and where we're going to be. That creates uncertainty, which drives up them hedging their bets and saying, what does happen 5 years from now? What does happen 10 years from now? We're already behind. We're going to make it up right now.
Mhm.
And you don't have an accurate data set because you've got your constant changes in your ecosystem that change the fire behavior and byproducts of combustion, stuff like that. So you don't have a benchmark that you can use, because as soon as you start to predict and put in your inputs for your fire behavior calculations for your community, that ecosystem is already changing.
Yeah, I think we would agree, and I think we're going to get into some of that, and that's what some of the data is showing. And then what do we do as, I'm going to default into my background and my comfort zone, but as practitioners, right, we respond and we suppress. And that's where we find that ability to be effective. But as far as finding those economic benefits and some of those mitigations that matter, that's where it gets quite a bit more complicated.
So two reasonable people that are trying to understand the effectiveness of mitigation. This is not hypothetical, this is real. Two experts come to different conclusions based on data from high quality data from California on following the building codes, using the right materials, defensible space makes a huge positive impact. Another person looking at the same data publishes a contradictory or a different result. That no, it really didn't. It was still a flip of the coin, whether your house versus your neighbor's.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are legitimate people. They don't have an axe to grind, as far as we can tell. Looking at the same data, coming radically different conclusions about this is what you can do to mitigate your risk, and the insurers should take this into account. Versus no, it's still a flip of the coin. We're going to charge everybody more,
Mm-hmm.
or it's the same. I mean, that's a reality on the ground in California right now, and the insurers don't know what to do about that because they can't. They don't have the current consensus about a lot of mitigation. We all believe mitigation works. What I do, most of us believe that defensible space is useful. The right building material is useful.
Sure.
It's hard to get that consensus to determine whether or not that is the truth rather than just the consensus, and then to have the insurers act on it. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Right, and I would define insurers acting on it as how do we translate that level of success onto the ground or into what we do daily, right? And what does that look like? So did you have a question?
I was just going to add that I was going to ask based on, because I have this in my district, and probably 50% of my field work is going out and doing these inspections on homes because they're dropping their insurance or they're bringing cancellation. So my question is based on what standard. We have two different. We're probably going to get there, but.
No, it's perfect. And you guys are hitting all the points, and you're going to see where this all comes together and what this project is. We've had it, and by the end, this is all going to kind of come together, I think, and you're going to see this and see why we're doing this project and why Arizona fire chiefs decided to get involved with this project. We're seeing it.
Oh,
Okay,
sorry, go ahead. And Todd, to your point, over the last 10 years, we've seen a 250% increase into not only fire activity, but then that's translated into 80,000 plus structures destroyed, right? And so we're now recognizing that we've done a really good job of treating the natural environment. We've gone out, we've worked with different institutions, we've pursued different economics, we've done a lot of small and large landscape treatment, prescribed fire regimes, fire intervals, all that kind of stuff. Which is great, but we've created a little bit of a donut hole, and Neil spoke to some of that this morning in his presentation for those that saw some of those images that went up in and around Flagstaff. But part of the problem that we've created with that is now we've moved that fuel loading, and that threat has now become internal, right? And so it's not that the natural environment is the fuel threat, it's now the built environment. And so we're starting to see quite a bit more of that, up to and including, the 160% increase in structures destroyed along that same timeline.
We've talked about this, so significant increase in fuel loading. All the models and everything we've used has always been on the natural landscape being our fuel. That's what we've always considered our fuel. Now we need to consider that our fuel is actually our structures. How we're building out in the interface that we have and the mix that we have now, the fuel is our structures. We're doing more development in fire-dependent landscapes. And circling back again to this increased vapor pressure deficit. Okay. Let's explain that. Simply put, think of the atmosphere as a sponge. It's soaking up more moisture from the environment, from the vegetative fuel landscape, making it drier, causing more lightning. There's record lightning strikes in the Northwest and in Canada over the last couple of years.
So back to that second bullet, there is more development in fire-dependent ecosystems. And just real quick, can someone help us define what a fire-dependent ecosystem looks like? What exactly that is? Todd, I'm going to pick on you if nobody else raises their hand.
If you're not in a swamp, it's literally everything.
Sure.
Because that is the mechanism to recycle nutrients.
Right.
Unless you were in an ecosystem like the rainforest, where moisture is present enough to encourage bacterial growth, rot, fungus, things like that. Everything in North America is a fire dependent. Now, there are varying degrees. A ponderosa pine forest stand is evolved, that's designed to do it, the trees are designed to do it. Lodgepole timber, different story. Grass and brush, totally different story. But to a certain degree, it all is.
Yeah, and I live and work in one, right? And Chief, you do as well a little bit. You're in a little bit of a lower elevation, different fuel type than I am. But ponderosa pine, to Todd's point, in order to live and thrive, it needs to see fire, is what the science shows, every 3 to 5 years. Now, that gets a little bit tougher in the built environment, obviously. But when we're talking about that built environment and more development as opposed to development, we're dealing with 100+ years of policy that I would be cautiously willing to define as bad policy. 10 a.m. rule. We've treated fire as a battle enemy, as something that we can basically begin to eradicate. And we've dealt with those types of things for a long time. And then this slide here shows that fire-dependent ecosystem that we're talking about. Flagstaff sits on the Coconino National Forest, right in the middle of it, largest contiguous ponderosa pine forest in the world. And so these photos are all from the same area along the Coconino National Forest. Lower left first, this was what we would call pre-settlement, late 1800s, early 1900s. Middle photo, about 50 years later, you start to see a little bit of a ponderosa pine encroachment. Following that same vector to the upper right corner of the slide, 1989, so call it about 100 years. We see full encroachment. You can hardly even see just the big, pretty yellow pine there anymore. And then the two other slides in opposite corners, upper left, lower right, those are illustrations of how fire moves through that environment based upon how we've treated it over those years, right? So if we come in and we fully suppress fire for 100 years and we're left with an environment that looks like this photo from 1989, we can expect it to act like it is in this lower right photo, running crown fires, what we would classify as catastrophic fires. So big, large incident management teams coming in, lots of burden on the tax dollar, lots of firefighters, all that kind of stuff. Upper left, this for us programmatically in the day-to-day business that we do within the City of Flagstaff Fire Department, we would call that good fire. That's our idea of how fires should be moving across the landscape. Low, slow, low to the ground, taking out the understory, punching out some of the mid-story a little bit, and keeping that fire-dependent ecosystem healthy. So this is just a graphic of what we're talking about with some of that.
We're going to jump into the project really quick, but I wanted to go back real quick. This image right here. Most people who've been on a fire have been on a ridge similar to this, maybe with the houses, maybe without the houses. This is a small community. This is actually in Chile. It's a new community built to home hardening standards as they have down in Chile, not ours here, different. This fire came in through this bottom left corner. That was the direction of travel for this fire. Just so happens there's a big construction buffer right there. Let's call it, a mitigation, because that's what it was. The fuel was removed. Fire hit. This community was evacuated. The fire hit that, wrapped around, and you'll see on this lower right side here, okay, they had done landscape mitigation prior to when they built this community. Vegetation resistant to fire. And they also had mitigations in place where they removed fuel, shortened fuel. So as fire ran up, I mean, you've seen this. This is where these chutes right, this is where we kill firemen every single year. Just like this. We kill civilians, we kill fire personnel. This fire blew through here. No one was there. No fire engines were there. It's still standing. As soon as the fire blew through, homeowners were let right back in. Within this community, there was about 16 small spot fires. This whole community, it was mopped up, picked up, no loss, with backpack pumps. So we know the mitigations will work. We know home hardening works. We've talked a lot, and we've made, a lot of people are frustrated with insurance companies raising rates and how they're evaluating the risk and issuing these rates and dropping policies. Reality is, for the last 5 years, insurance companies have had a combined loss ratio where they're losing 8 to 20% depending on the company and where they're invested at. As a business owner, Jason, could you survive 5 years of 8 to 20% loss without making any changes? No, you'd make a change, right? Or else you're just going to be out of business. Or nonprofit. There you go. So, jump forward. Vapor pressure density. Paul? Okay. This was from a study by the CARE Institute. We're allowed to use this. We can't share it. We can't. They put a lot of stipulations on this, on us, for this particular slide, because what it shows, if you look over here, is record year. This is 2017, right here. This is what we're looking at. This is middle of the road emissions from wildfires. But when you go forward, when Neil was talking about, yes, it's bad now, but it's going to get worse. This is what he was getting at. This is what's in our future right here. This is affecting vapor pressure density. This is what we're looking at for burning. We're at the beginning of a really bad time coming at us like a freight train. We have 45 million homes nationwide in the WUI. a lot of homes. And it's only going more. Right?
Somebody on the field who's seen what's happening right now, like we were on fires in Oregon and Washington, and our F bands had to quadruple their outputs to
Yeah.
match what was happening out
It's
there. Our charts don't go high enough currently to accurately give us what the fire behavior will be, and if that's what the future holds.
this is what the future holds for us. It's only going to get worse.
We could see it now, right? I mean, we're in, granted, we're in the heart of the desert Southwest, but when we're getting up, walking around tomorrow, having our coffee and getting some fresh air, look around and see if there's any dew on any of the species around, if there's any moisture in the air whatsoever. Coming into, December, 2 days ago, I'm in Flagstaff walking around in shorts and flip-flops. 3 years ago, we were probably skiing this time of year, right? So there's quite a bit of reality to that. When Todd's talking about F-bands, it's an acronym we use for those in the room that aren't in that industry. Fire behavior analysts. They're the folks involved in incident management teams who are predicting 1, 2, 3 days out about what the fire is going to do, so we can make strategic and tactical decisions and advantages. And if we're having to get that loaded up just to meet that model and keep pace with it, and that's what the future's showing. What Todd's talking about validates that slide.
So where this project that I'm going to show you right now, where it came from is, and I'm sure everybody in this room has this experience. We'll call them the Smiths. And this was Frank's experience. Frank's inspectors, he was chief of Mammoth Fire in California. Went out, got an inspection. You got your inspection, you got your certificate, you're good to go. Next week, your insurance drops you. You go to James, he's your fire chief. WTF, chief? You just gave my inspection, said I was good to go, and now my insurance has dropped. I'm sure everybody in here has a story just like that. Problem was, we've had such big change over the last 2 decades. The insurance companies and fire, too, working with legacy data and systems that don't work in our environment anymore. Our environment has changed. Our ecosystem has changed. What we're doing, building into the WUI, has gone up exponentially over the last 2 decades. We can't use old systems to solve our problems anymore. We can't use old systems to issue insurance. And we're for sure, ask California, you cannot suppress or regulate or price our way out of this. It's not going to happen. And what's come up earlier when everybody was talking, I've identified, on your own, you identified the problem. Fire's here, insurance is over there, WUI code is over here. Okay. We're not doing enough collaboration and talking. That's what our project is about, and that's what this whole thing started for Frank 5 years ago. And it took a while for him to understand insurance and correlate insurance and fire, which is strange because fire service started because of insurance companies. Okay? Insurance companies, Allstate doesn't talk to State Farm. State Farm doesn't talk to farmers. Okay? It's like Pepsi and Coke, not sharing their recipes. Okay? And how they do business. Okay? 1, it's bad for business. 2, there are trust rules that we have in this country that prohibit that kind of thing too. But fire and insurance can talk. And we have talked. And so we developed, well, we've identified what kind of a path forward. All of our goals, and everybody in this room wants this. Insurance wants this. They want no loss. Every fire department wants no loss. Insurance company expects loss, and they book a percentage where it's an acceptable loss. Let's call it, say, insurance company says, okay, it's 4% loss. In your district, what would a 4% loss in structures in your district be? Would you be fire chief anymore? No. Statewide, a 4% loss in Arizona, that would be huge. Huge. Fire, we've looked at this. We've looked at retro hardening. We've concentrated on defensible space and community level mitigation. That's been the fire focus. That's been our mitigation policy focus. That's been FireWise. That's been everything that we've worked on. But what we found is, as policy goes, we needed a nested policy construct, and this is really what it looks like. Risk and hazard are different. The risk policy focus, it's called insurance. They have to look at insurance rate making, risk, and I would say risk and hazard. Okay, unfortunately, we've made some risk maps and hazard maps, and we've used hazard maps as a risk map. They're different things, and they're not interchangeable. They've also had to look at bond ratings, reinsurance, mortgages. All that comes into play when we're talking about the insurance problem. The ideal state would look something like this, but there's a problem in there in that our modeling right now, remember I talked about legacy data and systems, is old. It's not current to this decade. So what we need to do, and what we're doing in this project, is we're going to move that out of the way and replace it with something else. You've heard us say mitigations that matter, okay, MTM. We also, there's different groups, so we're looking at HMM, WPH, hold on a second. Wow. Okay. Not sure what happened there. Sorry about that. So, HMM, hazard mitigation methodology, just so we're all on the same page. WPH is Wildfire Prepared Home. And SFW is Safer from Wildfire Guidelines. Really what it comes down to is mitigations that matter. So inserting mitigations that matter, which I think we can all agree need to be something that fire recognizes, insurance recognizes, can be recognized in a WUI code or a local ordinance for home rule states, et cetera. But we need to plug that in. Historical claim data against properties with these mitigations, okay? Let's look at, after fire comes through, those homes that had those mitigations, did it work? What did it look like? Combined with pre-fire data collection and use, incident use of mitigation. Have you ever used mitigation data in responding to an incident? No, probably not. Maybe a little bit. No. Post-fire reconstruction mitigation research, Paradise. The amount of data that's come out of Paradise from the campfire is huge. It's an incredible amount of data and studies that have gone on. Fire science research on heat transfer in the WUI. NIST has done and published a couple of really good technical notes. We talked about structures as fuel. So they've studied structure to structure. Because really, structure to structure is what burns down whole communities. It's not grass and trees that burn down whole communities. It's the structure to structure transfer. So they studied that and published a paper, and it gave us some really good data. But like James was talking about, collecting a lot of data from inspections and some mitigations that have gone on fire-wise, what's going on in your communities. But where's that data going? It's in a silo within your own department or within your own council. It's not going anywhere. So recognize the other problem, along with identifying the mitigations that matter, to have a central clearinghouse that this data can go into. The inspection data from companies like Fireside, who many agencies are using, many agencies in California, Colorado, throughout the West, Texas, et cetera, are using. That they collecting a whole lot of data. I think it's the Marin County has collected, to county in California, big fire problem. They were getting hit with the same. They went out and I think at last count they did they've done 60 to 65,000 inspections and issued corrections on what, if you correct this, this is where you'll meet this guideline that the county, city, the district has set. Once we have this plugged in and we have this, it's called a data commons is what it's called. Data commons is what it is, where all this data is going. Then we're able to plug that WUI property loss modeling back in with updated current systems, current data, in order to get models that take into account mitigations, your efforts that you're putting out there, so they can come up with models that are more in line with the ground truth. Ma'am.
So, full disclosure,
Mm-hmm.
you asked if there were any insurers in the room, and you didn't raise our hands. We're not
Shame on you.
We're
Okay.
not an insurance company.
Okay.
We are Veris, and we build the models that insurance companies use. And I'm very close with Frank. Frank and I talk all the time. I'm sorry I haven't met you yet. My name is Juliana. I'm the Senior Director of Wildfire at Veris. Our wildfire scientists with us who built our wildfire catastrophe model.
Which accounts for vapor pressure deficit being really high.
Wonderful.
The risk is, as we all know, the risk is getting worse. The hazard risk is getting worse. You do account for structures, wood frame structures as fuel.
As fuels.
And
We have a
once the
suppression
fire,
algorithm.
once the fire gets into a built-up area, into a lot of wood frame structures.
It's off to the races.
Nothing to account for that. It's bad news, as we all know.
Yeah. And we also have the ability to account for mitigations, parcel level, defensible space, community level mitigations. We have another model, we have two models, wildfire catastrophe model, and we also have a model that's known as Fireline. That's an address level risk scoring tool. It's been around for decades. That also has the ability to account for mitigations. So a lot of conversations with Frank, there's some misconceptions. And we are very much engaged in the data commons work efforts. I talk to Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority on a regular basis. So, and we're here. I want to show you that we're here. We come to these WUI conferences and we're really engaged, and we agree with you that these things need to be accounted for, and so that we can translate all of the data, and that's the next step.
Yep.
You're not wrong. Getting good quality, reliable data. We're data consumers. We love good data. So we need that, and so we're really happy to see the efforts that are being made to consolidate, make it consistent, make it standardized, so that it's all things we can put into the models, so that the insurance carriers can use it. And we're the translators, basically, of all of that really good data that we get from you guys. So,
We get blamed for the bad message.
yeah.
Right. And it comes down to, so good data set to a standard. We talked about that. When everybody's using a different standard, or no standard, let's be honest, it's a problem. Bad data in, bad product, right?
So, switching gears, from the consumer level,
Mm-hmm.
I think we all understand the need for insurance companies to remain solvent, right? They can't be just a giving institution every time that there's some type of a tragedy. I think where the issue comes up is not gonna get covered, or we're dropping you, or your rates are just gonna increase. Mine doubled for no reason other than there was a number of claims in California. That's according to my insurance agent. So I think obviously there's things that we need to do from an organization standpoint, whether it's a fire district, whether it's local municipalities, that type of thing. But on the other side, these insurance companies need to recognize that we're not all the same risk.
Correct.
That's what they're treating us as.
Correct. 100% correct. No argument there.
I would disagree. I mean, I think they've got mortality tables, right? I mean, they aggregate, I'm ignorant to it, but I think they aggregate the risk, and I think what they're saying is, yeah, guess what, you're in the same category. It's a broader category than the parcel level, but I think they're still trying to account for that risk, and I would suggest that maybe they're doing it because it's easier to just apply than to do the discrete.
So I can tell you, mine doubled, right? No claims in 18 years with the same insurance company. My in-laws live in Alpine. They can see the Wildfire scar from their front porch. They're with the same company. I live on a paved road. I've got a fire hydrant right in front of my house. I'm built to a class 2 under the WUI code. They live on a dirt road, no hydrant. Their premium stayed the same. So why would mine go up if they're looking at individual properties and applying the same data to each one? Why would mine double when I'm in a lower risk category and theirs stay the same?
So
And that's the concern from.
did they tell you why? Because they're supposed to tell you what was it wildfire that was the motivator? Wildfire risk?
They told me that they had too many claims in other states, and so they had to spread the risk out among all the holders.
I would like to add to this just a little bit. One of the inspections that I went and did, same city, retired Tucson firefighter, paved street, metal roof, no landscape around him within probably 100 feet, in a 1400 GPM hydrant out in front of his house in a cul-de-sac, flat topography. I contacted the person that did the evaluation for the insurance company. And I asked him, I said, hey, when did you come out here and do this? He said, I did this over Google Maps.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. A lot. And I don't have an answer on why. I can make assumptions, but let's not do that.
Well, we could say that if everybody actually did a physical good inspection, everybody's rates would go up because they'd have to be clearing an awful lot of people.
Right.
To get out there.
No, you're exactly right.
There's an amount, yeah, there's an amount there, and there actually is the capability to get really, really high quality aerial imagery, not Google Maps.
Mhm.
I
There is.
was just, I don't know what insurance company is using Google Maps, honestly, because there's so many.
Several.
Really high
Yeah.
quality data sources that they can use for relatively cheap, that is, 7.5 centimeter resolution of aerial imagery where you can see the defensible spacing. And they're updated much more frequently than people think. So I keep hearing a real disconnect, and I can't speak for the insurance industry. I used to work for an insurance carrier for 30 years, so I have some perspective, but I don't speak for them. I can tell you that the data providers that most of them use are providing really good data. So when I hear stories like that, it's like, I'd love to be in that conversation and ask those questions and hear it too. I believe you. It's happening over and over again.
Yeah.
I know, I hear it over and over again, but there's a real disconnect. And I also know there's a lot of reasons that rates go up. The wildfire peril typically in an insurance rate is a minuscule part of the insurance premium. If the carrier actually breaks it out and has a separate peril for the wildfire premium. But they have lots of reasons that they're having to clean up their books. And yes, it's that they took some big hits in other places. Normally, they can't actually use losses from another state. So I was a regulatory attorney for an insurance company for a lot of years. So that's really surprising to me that they're saying these things. But in the long run, I guess what I want to say is I agree with Neil that he said this morning, it's going to be rough for a while with insurance. But it's going to get
killers, yeah.
So it's gonna get cleaned up, it's gonna get better, efforts like this are gonna help. We're happy to be a part of this.
So they're going to pull the hook on us real quick. But what I'd like to do,
And nobody seems to ever be able to tell me that if you're here, it's this percentage, because of, like, the insurance companies, they're installed and we're all. So they've got some, but nobody has ever been able to tell me, this is the fraction of premium at any scale that's associated with wildfire versus hail versus straight line versus, if you don't know that,
okay, we've gone over time, so hold on, but we're going to solve this. 45 seconds to tell you what the project is that we're doing in Arizona so you understand why we're up here. So we've identified the disconnect. And what we've identified is there's 4 stakeholders in each state. The fire chiefs, the fire marshal, or authority having jurisdiction to authority to make code, WUI code adoption. The insurance commissioner, in this case, in Arizona, is DIFI, and the insurance association for that area. Arizona's a little different. There's not one state insurance association for all insurers, so we're gonna have to work with it with multiple. But get them to the table. We're gonna blow through all this. Get them to the table and identify and agree upon mitigations that matter. The modelers will recognize this. Okay. We're going to be here all week. I'm leaving Friday. Paul's leaving Friday. Find me. I'll make myself available in the lobby, in the bar, eating, drinking, whatever. Come join me. We can talk about this project more. But basically what we're doing, taking those 4 stakeholders, we're putting them all together and individually to get agreements on what the mitigations that matter are and what they're willing to do for everybody to accept those mitigations. And then help outline a plan forward with those mitigations that are identified either being WUI code and what insurers are willing to do once those mitigations and the code is set and those mitigations happen, and how we want them back and engaged and not pulled out of the market. We all need them. They want to be back in the market. So to give them the mitigations, these mitigations are based off of existing science from NIST and historical research post-fire, and then plug this all back into the data commons. And you've talked about data commons, you're involved with data commons, so am I, and it's basically it's a repository where these inspections and all this data is going to go so that the modelers have access to it and have good data based off of standards so they can plug into their models. Insurance can look at this data and these models and be able to get engaged and re-engage with writing policies. And we got to move forward. Sorry, guys. But we have to take action, and this is what we identified because we identified the disconnect between the stakeholders, between the fire chiefs, between fire marshal, insurance, and insurance commissioners, and everybody working on different mitigations and not a set standard, as you spoke to earlier, that we need to identify that set standard of what's going to work. That's what this project is. That's what the Western Fire Chiefs and AFCA are doing together in Arizona and other states.
Do you have a timeline?
It's got to be quick because my grant runs out in 2 years. So, no, we're moving forward, and I think we're going to have the initial part where we're meeting and identifying these mitigations done for Arizona within the next 6 months, and then a plan forward, hopefully within the next 6 to 8 months after that. Thank you all. Here's our contact info. Find us. I'll be out here. Paul will be out here, and we can talk some more and share information, contact, etc.